Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV, and welcome to this, the second part, or is it the third, because I did a live stream as well, the third part in my series of reviews on the TV series Project Blue Book. Now, this is kind of like part two of my, well, I didn't want to label it part one or part two, but I did a review recently, link in the description box, as always, including one to the live stream, of Project Blue Book episodes 1 to 6. I'm now going to review episodes 7, 8, 9 and 10, the last 4 episodes of the Series 1. Now Project Blue Book is a drama. It is a drama thriller which is based on the Project Blue Book, the original Project Blue Book, which was an official US government investigation into UFOs that ran from 1952 to 1969. There were several other, there were two others before then, Project Sign and Project Grudge, which ran from 1947, which Hynek was also involved, and they'd be in the post-Roswell, post-Arnold, the post-Kenneth Arnold sighting era. So this series is actually based on that. However, when I say based, it's not a fictionalization of what happened in real life. As I said in the first part, and I'm not going to repeat all the points I made in my review of part 1 to 3, parts 1 to 6. It's kind of like, it's not a fact-by-fact fictionalization. It is actually a dramatization which is based quite loosely on the original factual matters which happened during Project Blue Book. However, as I said before, it has a very Orwell-like skill in presenting history mixed in with genuine exopolitical ideas which were not necessarily a part of the history of Project Blue Book, or only partly a part. It's almost like it's enhancing those particular areas of what actually happened with Project Blue Book. Now, at the time I'm making this film, it's actually late. I mean, this is a film that should have been made a month ago, and I just haven't had time, or my health problems as well have been an issue, which means this is a very, very late review. And this is why I'm doing it now. I want to get it out of the way, basically, because this is something I've been meaning to do for so long, and I haven't done it. And I feel I've let the viewers down a bit. You know, you guys, I don't want to let you down when I promise to do something. And also because the series 1 is now receding into the past. It's just finished its TV run here in the UK. Now, I actually did see it before it hit the TV in the UK, but you may well have seen it. It is actually on UK TV again. It's a History Channel production, as I've said before, but it was shown on Sci-Fi. It's a British channel, SYFY. Now, Sci-Fi is where you get programs like Star Trek Voyager and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I don't dislike those programs, but they are obviously fictional. They're obviously intended to be fictional and they don't relate to any real events. Or maybe that's arguable, but maybe that's a story for another time. But to put Project Blue Book alongside that, I think may detract slightly from the seriousness of the series, the seriousness of the program and what it means. Now, episodes 1 to 6, as you know, I was very impressed with. I consider this one of the most remarkable TV series to come out in a long time. I also think it's quite remarkable, well, I also think it's quite serendipitous, really, is the way some things have happened in real life which appear to make the presence of the Project Blue Book TV series particularly well timed. Now, I'm not suggesting there's a conspiracy here. In fact, if you look into the history of Project Blue Book, about the TV series and about its production history, and about when they actually wrote the script and they started production and things like that, you've got to go back to before December 2017. So I'm not in any way suggesting that Project Blue Book was brought out because of the ATIP revelations and TTSA and stuff like that in December 2017. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, we know that Project Blue Book was already in production when that news broke. I've interviewed Dave Altman, who came up in previous videos. He's actually a guy who works closely with the cast and crew of that particular series, especially Ksenia Solo, who plays Susie Miller, the agent. And we talked an awful lot about the background to this particular program, and there's actually an interview on her Panwo Radio with him. If you want to go and listen to that, you'll find it very interesting, I'm sure. So, but it just does seem, I think it's good luck on the part of the creators of the series that it's come out at this time, and the series is just the exact type of series you need, in a sense, to address this this amazing time we're living in, with this the way UFOs are being portrayed in the media is changing. Now, the reasons for that is something I've mentioned before. I will go into again in an upcoming video, my new UFO disclosure video, which is coming soon. But it's pretty clear that it almost seems like the two are linked. It's weird. It's one of these weird synchronicities that sometimes happens, even though I know they're not actually linked physically. It's almost like there's something in the air which maybe the creators of Project Blue Book picked up. Anyway, episodes 7 to 8. Now, this is I watched them with great interest, of course, because I was very impressed, as you know, with 1 to 6, and 7 to 8 certainly didn't disappoint. Now, the funny thing is, 7 to 8 are, in a way, they're a bit anticlimactic. There's a rather strange hint that there's no real ET explanation for what happens. Now, in number 7, it's the only actual episode where the story comes out that the story ends with a hoax. We find out that it wasn't any real aliens involved. It's the only episode in the entire series which seems to address, which doesn't involve ETs. It's based on I think it's based on a real issue, a real event. Like all of them are based, all the storylines are based on real events within the actual episodes. What happened was, there's some scouts camping one night, and the scoutmaster claims to have seen a UFO and taken a photograph and found an alien skull. He shot this alien dead and the skull was there. Turns out it was a hoax. He concocted with a local policeman. Sorry, there are spoilers here, I'm afraid, just to let you know. But I'm assuming now everyone's seen the series who's watching this. But it's a hoax he concocted with a local policeman to try and win some money from Hollywood, who are offering rewards for evidence of UFOs and things like that. So that's strange. It's a strange episode, actually. It really is. It's a very strange. This skull, it turns out, is an American Indian relic, which with a specially shaped skull, which has been artificially shaped, artificially warped. Not all. There are some weird shaped skulls that come around, and I should add, just as an aside, not all of them are a result of Native American head binding. Some of them are. They do actually grow in a particular way. They are a different species. There's something weird about them. There's also giants. I do recommend looking at the work of people like David Hatcher Childress, Maria Wheatley, and several other people about that. Now, episode 8 is a strange one because it's kind of two conspiracies in one, because it's about an incident where some soldiers are on an exercise at night and they start acting strangely, and they continue to act strangely afterwards, and it turns out they're under it's a kind of MK Ultra project, and they are being tested using drugs for mind control, and this causes all kinds of problems for the dynamic duo, Hynek and Captain Michael Quinn, his J. Allen Hynek, the investigator, who's based on a real person, the real J. Allen Hynek, and Captain Michael Quinn, who is his sidekick, when they actually go and investigate that. But the funny thing is, there's a weird scene where these birds start falling from the sky, and of course that is something that has actually happened. These people who wrote this have done their homework. As I said, they've investigated real mysteries. There was this incident, I think it was actually in Arkansas, USA, where that was the most interesting example. There were others in other parts of the world where birds would suddenly die and they just drop out of the sky. And oddly enough, they were all red-bellied starlings in this particular incident. There were no sparrows, there were no blackbirds, it was all red-bellied starlings. Now, this is a pattern that was repeated in other places, and it seemed to happen at the same time those strange noises started appearing in the sky. Do you remember people started hearing noises like trumpets blowing in the sky? Very weird. It drove some people in America, it scared a lot of people, because of course they're very religious, and they're thinking of the trumpets blowing in the Book of Revelations, you know. but that happens. The birds that falling dead from the sky actually happens in this particular episode of Project Blue Book, and it's really strange. Now there is a hint that there's sort of like a double cover-up, a double bluff, the type that I've talked about in the previous episodes. In 1 to 6, that there was actually in 1 to 6 there was actually this double bluff which I've talked about, this sort of anti-Mirage Men position where the hoax that's going on is not, it's not intended, it's not fake UFOs to cover up spy planes and other things. It's fake sort of mundane conspiracies to cover up UFOs. I go into more detail in the part 1 to 6 review, which you can see there. Now, episode 9, episode 9 is very weird. Oh, I should mention, of course, in episode 8, that alien artifact comes back again. You know, the one Hynek stole from the nuclear base. Now, again, I covered that in the first video. It's interesting that both Hynek and Quinn actually go through periods of going renegade. And Hynek in particular. Hynek is strange because, like, in the first, Hynek begins with being very cooperative with the program. If you remember, Quinn says to him, look, we want to tell the public the truth. They don't exist. UFOs don't exist. And so, like, Hynek makes an effort to be intellectually honest, while Quinn, who is nominally his assistant, is actually secretly taking orders from the generals, who were telling him basically, no, is basically making Quinn Hynek's handler, and you know, chivying and chasing him along to, was it, I need you to write reports and close cases, not test theories, and that sort of thing. So both Hynek, of course, does go renegade, as I explained in the first thing, but Quinn does as well in several times. In fact, there's one scene where he's put to the test, and he's like, I won't spoil it actually for you because there's a lot of suspense in it, but he is supposedly interrogating this suspected Russian agent. But he's the one who's really being interrogated. Anyway, episode 9. Now this is interesting because a couple, a man and a woman, they break in to the Project Blue Book offices, and they're very, very agitated. The man himself is particularly agitated. His wife goes with him, and he's under enormous mental strain because he has an alien implant, and he has a gun with him. His wife goes with him, and what's interesting on this is it's partly based on the Betty and Barney Hill story, because he has a star map that he's drawn. Because that did happen with Betty and Barney Hill. They actually did. There was a straw map. This is where the Zeta Reticuli thing comes in, because according to their star map, the aliens come from Zeta Reticuli, the star. It's a very, very odd thing. And of course, that strange alien artifact, the thing that looks like a tesseract with lots of blocks, which Hynek stole from the nuclear base, thanks to the Mr. Fixer, thanks to the man in black, the sort of good man in black, who gave him the key. And that guy comes up again. It's really, really good, because like in, as I said, there's something similar to this. It's a bit like my character Flying Buffalo in the Roswell trilogy. This guy seems to play a similar sort of role. He's not actually supernatural as my character is in those books, but he seems to sort of dip in and out of the story to give vital information, and appears to know things that the main characters do not, and sort of informs them in a very cryptic way. Which, as you know, if you've read the Roswell trilogy or any of the Roswell books, you'll know that this is what Flying Buffalo does. So that's a very that's one of the most fascinating things. Is Mr. Fixer. He's a gently spoken man, and he appears to be very worldly wise, and he seems to have insider knowledge. But he's part of a group of people who, and he says, "We want what you want." He says to Hynek, which of course is the truth, the truth to be public. And there's like the opposite of him in a sense is the actual Russians. Now this of course is Susie Miller, who really is a Russian, as I explain. You see her, she seems to be this all-American woman, speaks perfect English with a perfect accent, American accent, but of course she's Russian. Her actress actually is from I believe it's from Latvia or something. Ksenia Solo, I think, originates from Latvia. Dave Altman, if you're watching, you can add that in. I think it's Latvia or Lithuania. Where does Ksenia Solo come from? I know she's a colleague of yours. But her performance actually is one of the best things in the actual series. I mean, she's so good. I mean, she's so good at the role. I mean, she's this very beautiful, alluring lady. Very pretty, well groomed, lots of makeup, well groomed, neat and tidy hair, the perfect honey trap, who of course tries to corrupt Hynek's wife sexually, as I explained. But you can see actually even before it's revealed who she really is, even in the first scene where she appears in the series, which is where she first meets Mimi Hynek. You can just feel there's something wrong about her. There's something creepy about her. You just can feel it. You can just sense it, and of course that's deliberate. She's an excellent character, and she's very well played, and she's a very well developed actress, a very good actress, a very well developed character, and you just know there's something wrong with this woman. And of course Mimi's quite a naive person, and she's just sort of like sweet, sort of middle class American housewife. It's quite naive. Doesn't know how to shoot a gun, and of course there's a scene where Susie teaches her how to shoot. She doesn't quite see it, but all the viewers can see it. We can see there's something wrong with this woman, even before she starts like putting her hand on her knee and all these other creepy, rather strange things she does, and taking her to the Beatnik bar, this place where all kinds of sort of lascivious things go on. There's something wrong with her. You can sense it immediately. There's some darkness in there. So that's one of the best things about the series. Actually, was that performance, that character. Episode 10, the final episode. The climactic final episode is really quite something. It's based on the Washington invasion. Now, this is something that really did happen in July of 1952, where over a number of days, there was more than one actual day when this happened, strange objects were seen in the area of the US Capitol. They were picked up on radar, they were seen by people on the ground. Oddly enough, someone called Nick Pope was involved in that. Not the Nick Pope. But there's like... it's a very well-made episode. Like, there's these scenes on the Mall in the Capitol, and you see the Washington Memorial, this big 555-foot obelisk. Oh, excuse me. It's one moment, like there's one shot like where there's these two people playing with a frisbee, and you see the frisbee in the air, and you think it's a flying saucer. Of course, that's a deliberate, and there's several shots like that in Project Blue Book. It's quite well. The camera work's quite good actually. But again, Hynek goes renegade again. It's quite good because the Mr. Fixer, that's the man in black, who appears to be the good man in black, who is sort of, as I say, he's like Flying Buffalo. He turns up with there's lots of others. There's like a whole load of them. And of course, they look like the men in black. They've got trench coats, black trench coats, the hat, the trilby hat, the big black tie and everything. And of course, like hats, trilby hats. Well, everyone used to wear those in those days. It was like normal for a man to wear a hat. I mean, I wear a hat, of course, all the time because I've got this big bald head. But most people are not bald and they still wore hats. It was just a fashion of the times. But you can see that they have this particular style of dress. And indeed, this was the normal way people dressed, as I say, in the early 1950s. But the men in black have always looked like that, even in modern times. I mean, men in black appear all over the world in different ways. I mean, if you ever see Credo Mutwa's interview with David Icke, or the other way around, David Icke's interview with Credo Mutwa, he talks about how the men in black, or men in black-like beings, appeared among the Zulu culture of southern Africa long before white European settlers arrived, and the Zulus called them the beasts of the terrible blanket. So, I mean, if you ever read John Keel or Nick Redfern, you'll know that there is something ufological about the men in black themselves. However, I didn't get this impression in Project Blue Book. It's interesting how this guy keeps just popping up and turning up now and again, everywhere he goes. there's nothing to indicate that Mr. Fixer is in any way supernatural. He just seems to know a lot, and he seems to be able to know how to be in the right place at the right time. But you don't see him just vanish like you do, like the real Men in Black do, and indeed my character Flying Buffalo does. You don't see him just vanish like as a ghost or other kind of apparition would. So that's another interesting. That's another interesting thing. I should also say in episode 8. I got that slightly wrong. I've just rechecked my notes. There is a kind of hint of I think I did give that hint. Yeah, there's a hint in episode 8 of there being like a kind of double bluff, and there really was a UFO. It's only episode 7 where there is no UFO. There's nothing ET, and we find out it's a hoax. That's the only That's the only internal episode storyline plot within the episode where you find out there's no UFO involved. Now, the last shot actually of episode 8, you see Mr. Fixer come in, and the alien artifact, the Tesseract object, has been buried. Because there's several alien artifacts in the last part of the series. For instance, the thing the guy's got a thing in the back of his neck, the Barney Hill type character in episode 9, and he actually gets his wife to cut it out with a pair of scissors, which was very painful. But he's desperate to get this thing out of himself, and he's desperate for Hynek to look at it. But it's the Tesseract-like object, the thing that Hynek picks up in episode 6. He's given the key by the Man in Black, and he goes into the scene in the church, that spooky scene in the church, and he goes into the basement at the base, and he unlocks the cabinet, the little drawer, and the safety deposit box, and it's got this thing in it, this Tesseract-like thing. It looks like a Tesseract. A Tesseract is a three-dimensional object, which is a shadow of a four-dimensional object. That's buried at the scene where the soldiers had their mind control. But Mr. Fixer, he comes along, as I say, he just seems to know where it is. He just digs it up. This is why you do get the feeling he's kind of there's something a little bit. There was something spooky about him, actually. Anyway, the Washington invasion is very interesting because it happened pretty much as it's happened in real life. But what happens is this: Hynek and Quinn are directly involved in this. Quinn actually flies his plane up to intercept them because he is a pilot as well as being in Project Blue Book. So he takes a plane up with the other Army Air Force people, or U.S. Air Force it is back then. By then, the other U.S. Air Force people to intercept the UFOs. And what's funny is, you think that there's going to be that Hynek is actually messing around, but Hynek does go renegade again, and he meets up with Fixer and the other Men in Black, and Quinn follows him and thinks that Hynek is pulling a fast one. Because as I said, Hynek and Quinn, their relationship is interesting because it develops considerably. There's a kind of, like I said, there's a kind of good dynamic between those two characters. As I said, Quinn is secretly managing Hynek, at least at the beginning he is. Yet he sort of changes his position. Hynek changes as well through the course of the series. But Hynek there's a kind of old cop, young cop dynamic between the two of them. Hynek is this much older man, a civilian, wears a grey suit, professor, and Quinn is this sort of like sort of happy-go-lucky sort of chap, pilot, U.S. Air Force pilot, and so they're very, very different people. And they have in episode 9 they end up having a fight. Yeah, but their relationship develops considerably in that sense. And I don't know if I could put a spoiler in now. Should I? At the very end of episode 10, after the Washington invasion, I mean, there's meetings with various people. President Truman is in it. He's played by Bob Gunton, who's a famous actor who tends to play bad guys. I've noticed he tends to play bureaucrats and negative people, like in in several films he's been in. I remember him particularly in Patch Adams, where he plays the bureaucratic dean of the university. But he tends to play those kinds of characters. He plays President Truman in this. Now, interesting things about episode 10, I should say, first of all, is Mr. Fixer and his Men in Black, his positive Men in Black, they give Hynek a piece of evidence, which is a reel of film, which Hynek plays, and then it's basically a missile. It's a ballistic missile. It's a film of a ballistic missile launch, a test, in which a UFO appears, flies around it, shooting beams of light at it, and it blows up. What does that remind you of? Do you watch my UFO Truth Magazine reports? It's exactly what Dr. Bob Jacobs saw, didn't it, in real life? And he did his talk at the UFO Truth Magazine conference, and that's what he saw. And it's in Project Blue Book. It's really amazing. But then a strange thing happens, and as I said, I'm not sure whether to put a spoiler in here. But Hynek and... Well, first of all, Hynek does it. Quinn doesn't really know where it's going with, but Hynek lies. Hynek lies at the press conference in the aftermath of the Washington invasion. And he says, nothing to see here, just swamp gas. I think Captain Quinn, when he's up in his plane, he saw a temperature inversion, ball lightning, etc., etc. Because there's thunder rolling, you see, at the scene where the aliens first appear in Washington. There's thunder rolling in the background. He said, oh, it's ball lightning, and of course no one really knows what ball lightning is, but it's an interesting way to end the series. And again, his spoiler is a spoiler. Hynek goes to Quinn afterwards, and he says, look, basically he says, if we want to get to the truth of this, we're better off on the inside of the project. But if we're truthful, we'll be kicked out of the project. Indeed, both of them come close to being sacked several times, as you know, if you've watched my other reviews and if you've watched the series. There's several occasions where both of them are almost kicked off the project. He says, let's do what they tell us, in other words. So basically Quinn writes reports and closed cases. Hynek goes around telling everybody that it's just swamp gas, and it's hoaxes, and it's kites and birds and unusual aircraft, etc. Nothing to see here, move along. So in a sense, Quinn and Hynek decide to vote tactical voting, I think you could call it. They decide to lie to they both conspire to lie to their superiors, and that way stay on the inside of the project and get the true story, which they will then both deal with independently of the command structure. Now, it's a good idea, it's a clever idea, and I'm curious to see where it goes, because, of course, I think I mentioned this before, I think this actually came out, and I mentioned it on the previous video. Series 2 has already been confirmed. And indeed, the Series 1 ends openly, it's very open-ended. Episode 10 ends quite cryptically, actually, with Mr. Fixer. He's in an ice-covered land, either somewhere near the North Pole or the South Pole, and he sees this strange obelisk-like structure appear in the ice, and it's lit up. It's like an alien artifact or something. That's a very, very good. And of course, there are other unfinished storylines within Series 1. So I'm very pleased there's going to be a Series 2. I'm looking forward to it. I even suggested I wanted my daughter to get involved, because you know, I told you before, my daughter is an actress. Well, she's actually got no. She's been in a couple of short films, but she doesn't have any really major acting experience, and she's sort of gone off the idea now. But I wanted her to. I said to her, "Why don't you audition to be in this?" I said, "You get to go to Canada and film there, and places like that." Oh, she won't. It's a shame, because I'd like to see her do that, because I think I'd like to have an actress as a daughter who's an actress. She can give me some money. Nah. I was trying to encourage her to be in Capel Green as well, but that didn't go down very well. It's her own lack of enthusiasm, unfortunately. So she's only got herself to blame. But I'm very pleased Series 2 is coming out. Really am. Unfinished stories hopefully will be fulfilled. I'm really curious to see what happens. Now, I've watched a couple of other reviews of this. I mentioned podcasts. I mentioned Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague on the last program, I believe. I think I mentioned that, or was it? I think I might have mentioned that on a previous UFO disclosure video. Oh God, I don't know. But Podcast UFO did a couple of programs with it, and they got Kevin Randall on. Now, I think Kevin Randall enjoyed the series, but he was nitpicking a bit. Now, Kevin Randall is something of he's a military historian, so he kind of knows detail. And what he was doing, he was quite critical of the program, because he believed it kind of lacked authenticity because of lack of attention to detail. For example, he said, "Oh, well, you know, the the medals some of the guys have are wrong on their uniforms. And this is some of the way they speak, some of the ways they speak, like they address the general wrongly. This guy wouldn't address him as sir, he'd just say general and things like that. And he also said when they're out on the base on the flight line, they wouldn't be wearing hats because hats can be blown around the place by jet exhaust and things like that. So what Kevin is basically saying here is that authenticity can best be achieved with attention to detail. And technically that's right. And indeed Kevin Randall has acted as a military consultant for several other UFO dramas. Indeed, he was on Paul David's Roswell movie, the one with Martin Sheen and Kyle MacLachlan, if you saw that. That was very good, that's a very good movie. Kevin Randall is the military consultant for that. And he's done, as I said, as a military historian, he's been on several other programs, often with a UFO bent, because he's a ufologist as well, and on the subject of acting to make sure all the military details are correct. Now, I think I brought this up with Dave. Did I mention this with Dave Altman? I think I might have done on the radio show. The thing about that is, it's on Panmo Radio. I'll put a link in the description box. It's true. I mean, technically that's true. The problem is you have to bring in these consultants is not cheap, and you'd have to bring in a lot of them. I mean, it's not just the military stuff that will need to be exact. There's a lot of other consultants you need to get that authenticity through attention to detail. You'd need to bring in other consultants for other aspects of the program, because it is a historical drama. It is a historical dramatization, fiction. It is set in the early 1950s, and you need to get everything right. Here in the second decade of the 21st century, everything's changed. Fashion, clothing's changed, technology has changed, society's changed. The way we speak, the way we dress each other, the way we talk to each other, things like that is totally different. And so you would need to get all kinds of consultants in. It's possible the production team decided it wasn't worth the money, and they just thought, we'll make it as authentic as we can through our own research, and that should be good enough. And I think it is. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't have even noticed these things because I'm not a geek about these things the way Kevin Randall is. So I suppose only the geeks would be bothered by this. And the same, it's like when I'm watching Inspector Morse. I'm always saying, what's he doing there? What's he doing? He's driving down South Parks Road. He turns left, and he turns onto Princess Street. What's going on? Of course, that is an error of geography, because of course they shoot one scene in one part of Oxford and then they shoot another scene in another part of Oxford, and they make them look like consecutive scenes, like it's they're one after the other, shot one. And of course I know that because I live in Oxford and I know the city intimately, but most of the people who watch Inspector Morse don't, so they don't care. They just say, oh, that's yeah. So I think TV production knows this. So Kevin Randall went on a bit of a long rant on Podcast UFO about how they got this wrong and that wrong, which I think is a bit nitpicking. I think he didn't say it was a bad thing. I don't think it spoiled it for Kevin. I mean, I don't think he said, oh, it's an awful program therefore. But I just think to himself, all right, Kev, we know you're an expert on these things, but you notice these things other people don't. Fine. Now, the true story of Project Blue Book and the fictional story, the comparing the two is very interesting, because there's no doubt, even though, as I said, this is a complete work of fiction, this is very loosely based on the real story of Project Blue Book. There's absolutely no doubt that the real story inspired the series. I've got no doubt that the writers and director of this series read J. Allen Hynek's reports. And the book he wrote about it, whose title I can't remember now. I haven't read the book, I can't remember the bloody title. But J. Allen Hynek wrote a book about his experiences with Project Blue Book. Now, what's interesting is, and this is not exactly what happened in the TV series. As I said, it's not meant to be a fictionalization. In fact, if anything, the Project UFO, the earlier program from the 70s that I talked about on the last video, which I used to watch when I was a little kid, is far more accurate historically, because it's kind of a whodunit. Each individual episode is a whodunit involving these two guys from Project Blue Book investigating, and they investigate several events. At the end you find out sometimes it was a hoax, sometimes it was a mistaken identity, but some of the episodes are genuinely left as unsolved. There's a genuine mystery that indicates that there was a real alien involved. Now the thing about Project UFO is there's no government complicity involved. It's extra politically neutral. Project Blue Book, of course, is not. The idea of a government cover-up is foundational to the plot, the story arc of the entire series. As I've said before, it opens with this scene, this kind of majestic 12 type scene. They're sitting around a dark table in a darkened room with a circle of lights above them. It's like the war room in Dr. Strangelove, if you remember my review of that film. And they're talking about how they've got to suppress public knowledge of something they know is real. That's known from the start. Now with Hynek, with the real J. Allen Hynek, he got in exactly like his fictional counterpart. He was recruited as a scientist, as an expert to investigate UFOs. Now when he came in, he just thought he really went along with this. He didn't know there was any cover-up. He just said, well, I've got a job now investigating, going around. The government are going to pay me to go around looking for something that doesn't exist. Because, of course, UFOs don't exist. He actually said, he found the subject of, this is what he said at the start of the project. He found the subject of UFOs utterly, he said, it seems utterly ridiculous, he said. He said it was a passing fad that would pass, would pass, like all fads pass. And he didn't expect to be in the project for very long. He said it would last just a year or so, and then it would just be closed because they'd find out there was nothing to see. Now, as I said, the following years radicalised Hynek, and I discussed that in a previous video about exactly how that happened. But you can see actually in his reports and the things he says that he very quickly came to the awareness that not only were UFOs real, but there was something wrong with Project Blue Book. Now when Project Blue Book started, his first boss was a guy called Captain Edward Ruppelt, who he had enormous respect for. Ruppelt was the head of Project Blue Book, and Hynek and he really loved each other. I mean, they were really on the same page. Ruppelt had exactly the same spirit of open investigation that Hynek did. Hynek was a true gentleman scientist. Even if it was something that wasn't real, he was going to do his job and investigate it. And he soon found out that there was something real there, and Ruppelt concurred. And Ruppelt and he immediately set out to get to the bottom of what was really happening. I mean, but then Ruppelt was removed, and he was replaced by lots of other different individuals, various nameless, suited or uniformed entities that Hynek didn't like and couldn't get on with because they were too close-minded. I mean, by the mid-1950s, Hynek is really expressing genuine frustration in the things he says at that time. So literally within a few years of the project starting, he's saying things like he was feeling frustration with dealing with the post-Ruppelt heads of the project. And he said, ridicule is a common way, the common way this is portrayed is ridicule, and ridicule is not a part of the scientific method. He noticed there was something wrong with the organisation of Project Blue Book, and in the end he did speak out about it, which means he is not that unlike his fictional counterpart in the TV series. He said that Project Blue Book changed, and indeed by the end of the project, which was it was winding down in the late 1960s, he said it was just a public relations exercise. Now isn't that kind of what the point of the TV series is? Only you're told from the start that it's a public relations exercise. And Hynek realises that much quicker. Now, Hynek, in his book, in the other things he said, it's pretty clear from his words that he understands that this is not accidental. He understands that the government know a hell of a lot more than they are saying about the UFO subject, but they don't want the public to know. And they're trying to suppress it, as General Nathan Twining said, the first head of the CIA, through official ridicule and denial. Now, my nose is itchy. Hynek realised that, and he said so. Now, he died in 1986. His children, one of his sons in particular, is very keen on the whole issue and does science fiction. He's actually a special effects designer for the movie industry and is very into science fiction and things. But Hynek actually appeared as a cameo, famously, in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He appears in the final the famous climactic scene where the aliens come down to meet with the humans at the secret camp and the foot of the mountain, the strangely shaped Devil's Tower mountain. And you see him, he's one of the white-coated scientists, he's got his pipe, he's smoking it, and you can see him there. He's on screen for a couple of seconds. That's J. Allen Hynek. So what happens now? Well, Series 2 is coming. Series 2 has been confirmed, which means there's going to be more Project Blue Book. I'm still in touch with Dave Altman, so hopefully I'll be able to interview him again or get some more information from him about what's going on. He's a sort of man, he's my sort of man on the inside. Dude, I will put a link in the description box to my interview with him. Do listen to it; it's very interesting because he talks about other things as well. And of course, the second season of Project Blue Book is in production now. And it is being produced, script written, directed, designed in an era after the ATIP revelations. In an era where the way UFOs are being portrayed in the media and the official portrayal of UFOs by the government has changed. Now whether that is for better or worse, or what's really going on, that is something I'm going to have to cover on a future video. However, I was on the Kev Baker show last week and we did go into this in detail about the various things that have been happening lately in the UFO circuit. For example, the Wilson notes, the various updates that Richard Dolan has been talking about, and also the things that have been on the Black Vault, you know, John Greenwald's channel. Now, I'm sure you'll want me to comment on this, you'll want me to comment on what's exactly going on. I do on the Kev Baker show. But I will be shortly making a new episode of UFO Disclosure 2019, where I will discuss that in more detail. I'm not going to go into it now on this film. This particular video is about Project Blue Book. But I just wanted to say this is relevant. The new world we are now in, and the world has changed in ufological terms, just in the last 6 months, is now the backdrop and will inspire the second season of Project Blue Book. And I'm very curious to see exactly how it inspires it, because, you know, there's almost like this episode 10 of the first series almost had this kind of, it did have a kind of pre-disclosure feel to it, although nothing came of that. So what will happen in series 2? I will try and find out. There's actually there's a documentary series now that's just called Unidentified. It is now out, and I know a lot of you guys have seen it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I will be doing so soon, and I'll try and incorporate some of that into my future videos in the UFO Disclosure series. I've got an awful lot to do. There's a lot more coming up, but I'll try to do these things promptly and in a timely manner when they appear in the news. So I make the video when these things are in the news cycle. So there is going to be a new UFO Disclosure 29 video coming very soon. Don't ask me for an exact date, but it is coming very soon, where I'll go into those details. So, thank you very much to the team that brought Project Blue Book to the screens. I wish you luck with Series 2. Thank you to Dave Altman, as I said, for a brilliant interview on this subject and many, many others, and also for his contributing the comments and things like that, and for the information he's given me. Thanks very much, of course, to everyone who's watched this video. I hope you're as big a fan of Project Blue Book as I am, because I'll tell you what, it could turn out to be, and I think it is, the most remarkable UFO TV series in history. See you again soon. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order!